Hello, today I will ask history question to a historian. Literary questions. Who is Michel de Montaigne?
Michel de Montaigne was a French writer who created essays.
Who was Shakespeare?
Shakespeare was an English playwright and poet. He is one of the most famous people.
Who was Miguel de Cervantes?
Cervantes was one of the greatest Spanish writers.
Now I have a question. Did Shakespeare really make his plays?
Well, there's some debate over whether Shakespeare actually made his plays or not.
What is essays?
Well, essays is a group of essays made by Michel de Montaigne. It covers a lot of topics.
Now what is Don Quixote?
Don Quixote was the novel made by Cervantes.
Now who else might have made Shakespeare's plays?
Well, it could have been Christopher Marlowe or Edward de Vere.
Now, who are the main characters of Don Quixote?
Well, there's Alonso Quijano, an old man who is a bit crazy. And then there's his more sensible partner, Sancho Panza.
Now, what is essays about?
Well, essays covers many topics.
Now, name a Shakespearean play!
One Shakespearean play is As You Like It.
Philosophical question. Who was René Descartes? René Descartes was a French philosopher who had a bright mind. Who was Francis Bacon?
Francis Bacon was an English philosopher and scientist.
What is René Descartes famous for?
Well, I'm pretty sure you've heard Descartes' famous saying, I think, therefore I am.
Now, what is Francis Bacon famous for?
Well, he promoted science.
Now, what's Descartes' idea of dualism?
He believed on the separation of the body from the mind.
Now, what about the math system named after him?
Well, it's a coordinate system called the Cartesian coordinate system.
Okay, now what happened to Bacon in 1621?
Well, Bacon took a bribe as a judge. He was disgraced and couldn't get a parliament job.
But how is he important to the age of reason?
Well, by using the scientific method, he proved most of the old ways wrong and helped improve reason.
Now, what's the advancement of learning?
The Advancement of Learning was a book made by Bacon, and it teaches about science and reason.
And finally, how did Bacon die?
Well, one day it was snowing, and then he decided to stuff a chicken with snow to preserve it, but then he died from the cold.
Astronomical questions. Who is Tycho Brahe?
Tycho Brahe was a Danish astronomer. Who was Johann Kepler? Johann Kepler was a German astronomer and Tycho's assistant.
Who is Galileo Galilei?
Galileo was an Italian astronomer.
What are Kepler's 3 laws? The first law says that planets orbit in ovals. The second law says that when a planet is closer to the sun, it speeds up. And the third is kinda hard to explain. And now, why does Tycho have a fake nose?
Well, he lost it in a fight, so he made a metal one and then added makeup.
What else is he famous for?
Well, not only was he the first to accurately observe a supernova, he made a new theory for the solar system structure.
What is the relationship between Tycho and Kepler?
Well, Kepler was the assistant of Tycho.
Now, what is the law of falling bodies?
In an airtight vacuum without air resistance, heavy and light things fall at the same time.
Well, what about Galileo's telescope advancements?
He greatly advanced the telescope and made discoveries.
Now, what about Galileo's trouble with the church?
Galileo believed in the heliocentric theory, which got him into trouble with the church.
Revolutionary questions. Who is William the Silent?
William the Silent was the Prince of Orange who helped the Dutch against Spain.
Alright, now who's John Smith?
John Smith was a separatist of England who may have been an early Baptist.
And who was John Winthrop?
John Winthrop was an English Puritan.
Who did William fight?
He fought against the Spanish during the Dutch Revolution.
But why?
The Dutch wanted freedom from the Spanish, but the Spanish disagreed, so William the Silent decided to help the Dutch against the Spanish.
Now, What was the group that John Smith was part of?
These were the separatists who decided to separate from the church.
What about the group that John Winthrop was part of?
They were called the Puritans because they wanted to rid the English Church of Roman Catholic practices.
Okay, but who was John Eliot?
John Eliot was a Puritan who wanted the Native Americans to learn about the Bible.
What is the relationship between John Smith and the Baptists?
Some people think that John Smith made the first Baptist church.
One more thing. I forgot, what's the difference between Puritans and Separatists again? Puritans wanted to rid the English Church of Roman Catholic practices, while Separatists wanted to separate from it.
Seafaring questions.
Who was Francis Drake, and how was he a seafarer?
Francis Drake was an English navigator who stole Spanish treasures. Who was Sir Walter Raleigh?
Sir Walter Raleigh was an English seafarer.
Meanwhile, who is John Smith?
John Smith was an English seafarer who helped found Jamestown. Who was Samuel de Champlain, and was he also English? No, he wasn't English this time, but he did explore Canada. Who is Henry Hudson, and how does he relate to Samuel de Champlain? Henry Hudson also explored Canada, just like Samuel. Okay, but who are the Pilgrims?
The Pilgrims were a group of separatists who left to America.
What is the country of Samuel? You only told me he wasn't English.
He's French. How did you not know that from his name?
I'm guessing Henry Hudson is also French.
What? But, no, he's English.
Now, what is the settlement that John Smith helped make?
He helped found the settlement of Jamestown in modern-day Virginia.
Finally, what position did Walter Raleigh hold?
Well, he was Elizabeth I's favorite courtier.
Questions about the natives. Who is Pocahontas?
Pocahontas was a North American native who helped John Smith.
Now what about another Native American, Squanto?
Squanto was another North American native who once again helped Europeans.
I forgot. Who did Pocahontas help again?
Pocahontas helped John Smith, remember?
Wait, but what about Squanto? Who did he help?
Well, Squanto helped the Pilgrims when they escaped.
Okay, I have another question. Why is Tokugawa Japan called that?
Well, it was named that due to its founder.
What about its social structure?
The nobility was at the top, followed by the farmers, craftsmen, rich merchants, and the others.
Who are the Aborigines?
The Aborigines were Australian natives.
Okay, but who is Pocahontas' husband? Is it John Smith?
Well, unlike the Disney movie, no, she was married to John Rolfe.
Now, when did Squanto die?
Well, he died on November 22, year 1621.
What is a haiku, finally?
Well, it is a short poem with only 17 syllables.
Questions about wars. How long was the 30 Years' War? Was it really 30 years? Well, yes, it was from 1618 to 1648, so it actually is around 30 years. What is the Spanish Armada?
The Spanish Armada was a giant army and navy made by Spain against England.
Which country started the 30 Years' War?
Bohemia technically started the 30 Years' War because of its conflicts.
What is the Peace of Westphalia?
The Peace of Westphalia was the peace treaty for the 30 Years' War.
Who is Philip II?
Philip II is the former king of Spain.
Who is Elizabeth II?
Elizabeth II was the former queen of England.
How many Spanish survived the attack on the Armada?
Well, out of 30,000 Spanish, only 10,000 survived. Who won the Armada attack, the Spanish or English?
Well, the English decimated the Spanish.
How many ships were in the Armada?
There actually is 130 ships.
When was the Peace of Westphalia?
The Peace of Westphalia was made in around 1648.
Alright, our interview is done. Bye!